Over the past 2 months, I've said a lot of things that I like about prawn noodles. Today, I want to talk about the things that I don't like. Namely, volatility and lies. I don't like how volatile the quality of prawn broth is. We have seen how the same broth from the same place at the same time can taste so different. This is allegedly because of the leftover liquid from not straining the noodles properly and then dumping it into the soup. A mistake that probably won't matter for most other soup noodle dishes. And the places that we visited in this series are so good at what they do that we never got a chance to talk about the real volatility. If you want good prawn broth, you need to use good prawns, which are most likely going to be wild-caught prawns because of their varied diet in the open seas, leading them to develop more complex flavors. But it's the open seas. What if the fishermen did not catch any of the prawns that you wanted that day? I can postpone the shoot, but they cannot postpone opening their stall. I don't know how they do it, but respect to them. Which is the point of this video. To wrap up the series, we will be heading into the kitchen to pay homage to the dish. In case you're new here, this is not a recipe video, as you will soon find out. I don't know how this is gonna taste. There are just a few ideas that I want to try. We start with the prawns. I have about a kilogram of both wild-caught swallow and angka. These are the swallow, or sand prawns. You can tell them by their rough, sandy exterior. They are supposed to be very good for stock, which is something that I'm really looking forward to finding out today. And then next, I have some angka or red leg prawns. How do you tell if it's angka? You wanna guess? If you said by its red legs, you will be absolutely wrong. Or half wrong rather. Angka is an informal term used at our wet markets for wild-caught or sea prawns. It came about at a time when farm prawns became popular and the sellers needed a way to differentiate their product. While most of the wild-caught prawns are of this variant, the one that has red legs, any wild-caught prawns that serve the same culinary purpose will be sold as angka in the wet markets. Anyway, we'll be separating the heads and the flesh. Yes, I know the shells carry flavor, but personally, I don't think it's worth the volume when you have enough heads. Speaking of heads, we will be trimming the rostrum, the pointy thing on the head, and the antennas. You'll see why later. For the meat of the swallow, we are going to add them into a hot pan and let them develop some color, get them out on the plate, garnish with spring onions, and a drizzle of Kewpie mayo. Kewpie mayo? With prawn noodles, Alderic? Oh, this one is for you to eat for fun one, while you see me prepare the other stuff. We won't be using the swallow meat for our dish today. Other stuff like a basic pork broth, which I made by boil cleaning the pork bones, and then pressure cooking it with some dried scallops for an hour. Also some rendered lard, which I then chopped some shallots and spring onion roots, and fried them until they are golden brown. This gives us some crispy toppings, a flavor oil to toss our noodles with, and also our cooking oil for the day. Next, we're going to sear our pork belly, giving it some nice color. I want to start it cold here so that I can render some of the fat out. I will use that to roast some cinnamon, cardamom seeds, clove and star anise. Once it's nice and fragrant, I then deglaze with light and dark soya sauce with a drizzle of huatiao. Add the pork slices back in, dilute with water until the right saltiness, and let that braise until you feel good about it. I told you it's not a recipe, right? Don't ask me what kind of instruction is until you feel good about it. You can however ask me, why luro or braised meat? I was particularly impressed by this during my trip to Penang. It's remarkable how comfortable the flavors of such a braise sits with the prawn flavor. So much so that the Penangites are convinced enough to charm them. They have an option where you can order prawn noodles mixed with lor mee. It's also very common there to add roast pork or boiled egg, so that was something that I want to represent here. Anyway, it's time to move to the star of the dish, prawn heads. We are going to roast the swallow heads with our flavor oil and 2 slices of ginger. Once it's nice and fragrant, transfer them into a blender and blitz. Sieve it out, and we have possibly a toxic amount of cholesterol. I'm going to do the same thing with the angka prawns because I really wanted to understand the difference in flavor between the two. I took a sip of both the prawn head purees, and I would describe the flavor of swallow to be heavier, more funky and smelly. Something that would do really well with fried Hokkien Mee. The angka tasted more friendly, more creamy, sweeter and fatty. Something that might be nice for cereal or salted egg prawns. I didn't know how all of these were gonna taste. So for the next step, I'm going to try to calibrate a flavor using both prawn head purees and the pork broth from earlier, tasting as I go. Something very interesting about this broth was that the fat started to split from the broth as it reaches a higher temperature. The texture is similar to what we saw at Zap Zap. One day, I want to try boiling prawns for 24 hours just to see what I'll get. Another interesting thing was that this broth was so thick, the bubbles were struggling to escape through the surface. The pressure would build up and explode every now and then. Eh? You never touched the QP mayo prawns? Why you don't like, is it? I'll eat it then. Anyway, we are almost done. Simply blanch our angka meat for 4.5 minutes. I've grown to love the pure flavor of prawn through this series. It doesn't even need salt in my opinion. Then we blanch our classic mee fen mian. Toss them with the flavor oil so that they don't stick. Lay out the soup, put some prawns in the soup, our braised meat, garnish with spring onions and a touch of chili powder. Top the noodles with some crispy lard and shallots, a little more prawns for good measure, and then we are done. As some of you might have guessed, I served it tsukemen or dipping noodle style. I wanted to minimize the volatility and get the best prawn flavor I'm capable of without diluting anything. And I'll say, if anyone with a prawn allergy happen to eat this, don't need to go to hospital already. Just text them and say you'll meet them straight at the morgue. I was particularly satisfied with how the prawn fat from the angka acted as an emulsifier for the soup, giving it this thick texture similar to tonkotsu. Which then leaves us with the second thing I dislike about prawn mee. The lice. Lice like half prawns. Hawkers slice the prawn down the middle to make it seem like there are more prawns than there actually is, destroying the texture of the prawn in the process. Back when I started this series, I thought this was a personal preference, but now I'm convinced that if you slice it, the texture is objectively worse. Other lies like free refills. Good soup cannot be free flow. No matter how you cut it, it boils down to how many kgs of ingredients per liter of soup. For free flow to happen, you either have to give each person less, dilute it, charge a higher price, or rent a place in Narnia. Something's gotta give, and I don't think it's healthy for the market as a whole. Free flow trains us to expect diluted soup, and once you get used to diluted soup, you start to forget what real prawn broth tastes like. And the thing is, these lies aren't born out of malice. They are lies forced by economics. We need to appeal to the customer who will always want it cheaper. Hawker food need to be cheap. But when we ask for cheaper, what are we really asking for? There's a difference between being efficient, economical and skillful versus straight up breaking the dish. I think prawn mee is one of the worst dishes to deal with a budget cut. Bak chor mee, you get a good sauce base going, you throw in a few shreds of meat, it can be really cheap and good. Bak kut teh, pork bones are way more cost efficient in making good broth as compared to prawn heads. You give less meat, as long as your soup slaps, it can still be really cheap and good. But for prawn mee, where if the idea is to showcase the flavors of prawn, an ingredient that is not cheap even after the miracle of banami, personally, I don't see a way around it, even with all the skill in the world. We see prawn mee as a cheap dish pretending to be premium, when it's really a premium dish pretending to be cheap. I think at a $5 price point, the dish has already started to break down into pork or chili mee with prawns. But Alderic, what about the rating? What rating? Oh, my prawn mee. This time not bad. I think I did quite well. The flavor is enough. Though I should have boiled my prawns with the shell on, I think boiling the flesh was a bit too harsh. The surface of the prawn becomes not as smooth and tight. So I think, for once, Alderic gets 1 plate. I cannot see myself leaving the house for this. And that's all I have for you guys this series. Next up, we will be having a filler arc before the chicken rice series starts. I need time to consolidate and possibly break my piggy bank in preparation for chicken rice. But it will still be Mondays 9 PM. Alright, thank you guys for watching. Go and have some prawn noodles. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!